All right, everybody. Hi, my name is Graham Elwood. Welcome to the Political Vigilante, joined by a very special guest, longtime friend of mine, Pat the Batman fan. You know him in the chats. Pat, how are you doing today?
I'm great, Graham. How are you?
I'm excellent. So we were going to talk about one of our favorite comics, George Carlin, and how he was so prescient. He really has been predicting everything that's happening. But first, before we do that, let's talk about why you and I are such comedy fans. We met at the Hollywood Improv. You were the sound guy there for a long time, and I was a comic who was performing there regularly. Do you remember what year it was that we met, or when you were working there?
Well, we met. I thought we met at the Columbia School of Broadcasting originally.
In Chicago?
Class of '95, wasn't it?
No, I did not go to school there.
I'm kidding.
Okay.
The DJ, you remember the Columbia Broadcasting DJ school?
Oh, yeah, that's right. Oh, you're doing a DJ book. I'm sorry. I was already off that riff. My fault.
Way to step on my bit, Elwood.
75
Great.
Past the hour.
Now
Pat the Batman.
I can't do my 20-year-old material now. Thanks a lot. We met at the Improv. I had just started going there. I was working at the Beverly Center at the time, and started hanging out there, and I was just blown away that the very first night I went there, it was like Brian Posehn and Doug Benson and a bunch of people I recognized. And so I kind of became a regular, and then eventually I thought, well, I'm spending so much money on drinks here, I might as well just get a job here. And boy, man, those were some golden years that you and I shared at that place, man. It was pretty fantastic.
That was like early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s in there?
Yeah. Every night or every weekend, it'd be Sarah Silverman, Zach Galifianakis, Brian Posehn, Doug Benson, Louis C.K., on and on and on. All the people that went on to, great success.
And one of them was a creep.
Glad. What's that?
and Louis C.K. is a creep.
Oh, well, yeah.
But no, I know what you mean. There's a lot of.
Yeah.
No, I remember that. That was like performing there and hanging out there all the time. I remember just performing anywhere around L.A. and then eventually ending up there, and maybe even doing late night sets or just. Yeah, it was pretty amazing doing sets there, and it was just like always. Doug and me and Patton and Nick Schwartzen and, Zach Galifianakis and everybody just there. I remember Sully McCullough did a lot of shows there.
Yeah, Sully, he was great.
It was like, it was pretty amazing time. I mean, it was like,
magical, really.
It was,
yeah.
It was before podcasting. It was before social media.
Mm-hmm.
The internet, people were still on the internet, but there was no Facebook or anything like that yet. And it was crazy. It was, and there was Largo and there was the M Bar and all these other venues and that whole like alternative scene and Maryland Rice Cup and everybody. So we're obviously huge, fans of comedy. You as a viewer, I guess, me as a performer, and so we both love Carlin, and we reference Carlin a lot on this show. Jimmy Dore references Carlin a lot. I remember Jimmy said he saw Carlin in the mid 2000s, like during the Iraq War, and he was so impressed that Carlin at the time was whatever in his late 60s or 70s, and was doing all this biting material. And the audience, Jimmy was like, the audience was amazing. It was all age. He goes, I saw teenagers there. I saw people in their 20s on up to people Carlin's age. And because him calling out the truth was so relevant and so on point. And it's something that sort of inspired all of us. Bill Hicks inspired us. Jimmy and I watched Bill Hicks live at the Funny Firm in Chicago in like 1994 when he came through there.
Wow.
Which was an amazing time. So I want to show this clip. So I'm gonna have to block your face for a sec, but this clip that many people who watch the show are aware of and have seen before, but and then you and I will sort of break it down, if you will.
Break it down.
So here's this famous clip from a special he did that was on like HBO or Showtime or something like that. And I think this is from like 2004, 2005.
Around there.
But there's a reason. There's a reason. There's a reason for this. There's a reason education sucks, and it's the same reason that it will never, ever, ever be fixed. It's never going to get any better. Don't look for it. Be happy with what you got. Because the owners of this country don't want that. I'm talking about the real owners now. The real owners, the big wealthy business interests that control things and make all the important decisions. Forget the politicians. The politicians are put there to give you the idea that you have freedom of choice. You don't. You have no choice. You have owners. They own you. They own everything. They own all the important land. They own and control the corporations. They've long since bought and paid for the Senate, the Congress, the state houses, the city halls. They got the judges in their back pockets. And they own all the big media companies, so they control just about all of the news and information you get to hear. They got you by the balls. They spend billions of dollars every year lobbying to get what they want. Well, we know what they want. They want more for themselves and less for everybody else. But I'll tell you what they don't want. They don't want a population of citizens capable of critical thinking. They don't want well-informed, well-educated people capable of critical thinking. They're not interested in that. That doesn't help them. That's against their interest. That's right. They don't want people who are smart enough to sit around the kitchen table to figure out how badly they're getting fucked by a system that threw them overboard 30 fucking years ago. They don't want that. You know what they want? They want obedient workers. Obedient workers. People who are just smart enough to run the machines and do the paperwork and just dumb enough to passively accept all these increasingly shittier jobs with the lower pay, the longer hours, the reduced benefits, the end of overtime, and the vanishing pension that disappears the minute you go to collect it. And now they're coming for your Social Security money. They want your fucking retirement money. They want it back so they can give it to their criminal friends on Wall Street. And you know something? They'll get it. They'll get it all from you sooner or later because they own this fucking place. It's a big club, and you ain't in it. You and I are not in the big club. And by the way, it's the same big club they use to beat you over the head with all day long when they tell you what to believe. All day long, beating you over the head in their media, telling you what to believe, what to think, and what to buy. The table is tilted, folks. The game is rigged. And nobody seems to notice. Nobody seems to care. Good, honest, hard-working people, white collar, blue collar, doesn't matter what color shirt you have on. Good, honest, hard-working people continue. These are people of modest means. Continue to elect these rich cocksuckers who don't give a fuck about them. They don't give a fuck about you. They don't give a fuck about you. They don't care about you at all. At all. At all. Yeah. You know? And nobody seems to notice, nobody seems to care. That's what the owners count on, the fact that Americans will probably remain willfully ignorant of the big red, white, and blue dick that's being jammed up their assholes every day. Because the owners of this country know the truth. It's called the American dream, because you have to be asleep to believe it.
So...
Amen.
It's like... more true today than when he said that on stage, whatever that was 15, 16 years ago or whatever.
Yep.
Because and what I've noticed in the almost 4 weeks now since the George Floyd being murdered and the massive week-long protests in every city, in every state in America, and 18 some countries around the world. That week had to have terrified the ruling class because for the first time, you had everybody united. Those protests all over the country it wasn't just Black people. It was, I mean, I was at many of them in Los Angeles. It was the most diverse thing I've ever seen. I saw more, and in, like, a friend of mine lives down in Orange County, and there was a big protest down there, and it was mostly white people, like 19, 20-year-old white kids going, this ain't right, Black Lives Matter. And so people are waking up to this, which is why you see the media now doubling down on the race war narrative. They have to make it more, and I'm not trying to diminish or excuse the fact that there are serious Nazi white nationalist Klan members in this country. They're violent, they're dangerous, they're heavily armed, and they're absolutely need to be put on terrorist watch lists. But the media keeps playing that up. They keep saying racial tensions on the corporate media. It's like they need this black versus white thing because it's like there's more of us of all different ethnicities uniting behind ending police brutality and defunding the police. And the conversation keeps getting expanded of like, well, if we're defunding the police as well, we should, and we need more money for social programs, then why are we spending all this goddamn money on the military? Why don't we have free healthcare and everything else? So as a fan of Carlin and as somebody that watches this show and other, indie progressive shows, what are you seeing, Pat, with regards to what Carlin called out 15 years ago and how it's playing out today?
Yeah, the answer your question, he answered in the video, because the owners of the country don't want that. Right. The politicians are there just for show. They're there to ride the gravy train and give you the illusion that you have a choice. And until Carlin said something else in one of his books, he said, like, short of a real life revolution, an honest to God revolution, things are really not going to change, because, there is literally no incentive for them to change. The billionaires and the elites might as well, and the politicians too, they're part of the big club. They might as well live on a different planet, no matter how much people are, shouting in the streets, until it affects them directly, until it arrives on their doorstep, they'll just keep trying to defend indefensible positions via the media that they own, which
right.
you pointed out. So, it could go any way these days. It's everything's so nuts. But yeah, I agree with him. I think unless it gets really, they've shown that they have no shame, really, and just like he said, they were coming for your Social Security, and they try, and they're trying again now.
Yeah, they're coming for Social Security. And as we've been discussing the last couple of months since the passing of the CARES Act, they're coming for your small business. They're coming for your home. They're coming for everything. They just cannot get enough. You have had personal experience with the big club. You've had personal run-ins via your home being taken from you by, thanks in part to Steve Mnuchin, who's our Treasury Secretary now. And you've been following it with the Epstein stuff and many other stories that you do on the channel here. So, all about the big club, and I'm pleased that you, the thing about Carlin is he sort of divorced himself from an outcome in the stake, a stake in the outcome of humanity. So he was observing it, from sort of a dispassionate place, not wishing for a specific outcome to things. And so he was able to just sort of observe the unvarnished truth, and that's why he's still as relevant now, because the truth, as you pointed out earlier, that's the part that really resonates. Like, he was an excellent wordsmith, and he did a lot of like other clever bits, about euphemisms and things like that. But when he got to the big world stuff, the political stuff in those later years, boy, he was so present, having that clarity, that's why it still resonates, because it is just true. Well,
and it's
it's the crazy thing. Unfortunately, it's more true now.
Right.
Like when he made that special, 60% of the country wasn't in a place where they couldn't afford a $500 to $1,000 emergency. I mean, he made that before the housing crisis. He made that before almost 6 million people, myself included, lost their homes. He made that. I mean, that's what's so insane. He made that before, I mean, all of he made that before Obama took us from 2 wars to 7. I mean, he was making that while Bush was in office with Iraq and Afghanistan, and how, you know, some people said, well, Afghanistan's kind of justifiable, but Iraq is completely not. Like, he made that before, I mean, all of the, like, I mean, if he was alive today, he'd be like, oh, I don't know what his comedy special would be like. It would just be like, I can't keep saying the same thing over and over again.
Told you so.
Yeah, I told you so. That's what the comedy special would be. I told you so. Yeah. I mean, again, like the Epstein pedophile ring, that hadn't, I mean, he probably wasn't as aware of that as all of us are now either. I wasn't aware of that back then. I mean, because again, the reason and the sort of the power of social media also hadn't come into play. Now, the ruling class tries and sometimes very successfully manipulates social media to push a narrative, but that was one of the things of all these protests is like, especially the younger people, you know, anybody under the age of 30, probably 40, is not watching regular media. So social media just lit up every police brutality home video that everybody, I mean, that was just, you couldn't turn on any piece of social media anywhere and not see some cop spray painting a tear. Like, I just watched one, people were just kneeling peacefully and a cop just went and just sprayed everyone in the face like an asshole. Like,
yep.
And the use of, and even we've had all of these unarmed people of color be killed since George Floyd. I mean, that young Latino kid that was a security guard, and the LA County sheriffs gunned him. The kid got scared and ran, and they unloaded 7 bullets in his back as he ran away. Like,
yeah. Yep. Well, George Carlin was no fan. He was anti-authoritarian. You know, he was definitely no fan of cops. He actually, while we're on the subject of cops, I will read from you, Graham, from my autographed copy of When Will Jesus Bring the Pork Chops, which my lovely wife got autographed for me.
Nice.
This is called Mr. Policeman.
Okay.
Remember, kids, Mr. Policeman is your friend. Always cooperate with him. Mr. Policeman wants to help you, so you must help Mr. Policeman. Don't forget, if you refuse to cooperate, Mr. Policeman will beat you to death, especially if you're not white.
Yep. And tell us the title of that book again that George Carlin wrote.
That was his last comedy book, When Will Jesus Bring the Pork Chops? Mm-hmm. And there's also, I recommend any of his books, but his Last Words, which was written with Tony Hendra, which is sort of a memoir which came out after his death, is well worth it, just for the fact that he calls Lorne Michaels a hands and knees cocksucker in it.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
But again, no, I mean, it's true. Like the cops can just beat the shit out of you. And this is in the, whatever the 15 years that book was written, the cops have become more militarized. Their budgets have been increased by many, even Democratic mayors and governors. And it's like, it's insane. I mean, we look at like Los Angeles where you and I live, that has, LAPD gets $3.1 billion, which is 54% of Los Angeles's operating budget. It's insane in a city that has there's tent cities everywhere, blocks from where you can't go more than a half mile in any direction in Los Angeles without finding people living on the street, like tents.
And there was a musician, just as an aside real quick, who I'll try and send you the video. A musician who started building mini homes for people in downtown LA, and he made hundreds of them and started moving people into them. And the city just came and destroyed them all, took them all away, like because they had their own plan, to deal with homelessness, which I'm sure involves some fat contracts.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Of course. Well, I mean, look, this city is run by developers. That's, again, you can't go a half mile to a mile without some massive new luxury apartment / condo complex that is either just built or is being finished built, or, with these anywhere from, and I'm not exaggerating the numbers. This is not me exaggerating, $4,000 to $5,000 one-bedroom apartments.
Yep.
Like, that's an insane amount of money for a fucking mortgage on a 20,000 square foot home, like, let alone a one-bedroom apartment. So you're talking about spending $60,000 a year just on rent.
They own all the important land.
Yep.
And these real estate groups are so large that, they can afford, just down on in Burbank, there's a stretch of Magnolia where they've just started jacking up all the rents, and all these small business owners are having to flee. And it doesn't matter to the developer if it sits for a year, if they can, double the rent on the next person that moves in,
Mm-hmm.
They don't lose any money because they have so many other properties. And,
Well, yeah, and they get zero interest loans. They get tax breaks from the government because, again, as Carlin said, they own all the politicians. They own all the. And again, going back to why the Epstein thing is so relevant is it really shows how awful the ruling class is and how extensive the corruption goes. I did a video that dropped last week about a judge who has all these ties to people who have a vested interest in this not coming out, mainly in West Palm Beach and in Florida. And so we can't release all the documents. Like, it's just unbelievable. Like, and everyone, William Barr's involved. I mean, that's why no one's been prosecuted. I mean, the Clintons are involved. Trump is involved. So of course these judges are going to be paid off. I mean, I just did a story last night on, 2 girls, black girls, went missing in Milwaukee and were suspected to be in a known sex trafficker's home, and the police didn't do anything about it. So it's very suspicious that the police the cops have to be involved. It's a thing Virginia Roberts said, which actually is parallel to what Carlin said. Virginia Roberts said you can't have a global sex trafficking ring without it. She goes, everybody knew. I mean, pilots, doctors, cops, assistants, women, masseuses, guys, children. I mean, babysitter. Like everybody knew about it, and
it would not have surprised Carlin one bit, I don't think, to find that out.
Right.
He didn't have material about that, but he did have a screed, pretty good screed against the royal family in general. Basically, like, fuck them, you know.
And so he wouldn't, he was against the royal family because he's seen how the royal family and the Rothschilds, which have a severe amount of influence on the royal family and are some of the wealthiest people in the world, have all this power and money and all of these ties and evidence to Epstein and sex trafficking. Like, it's just, and so they have to keep us divided. They have to, I mean, a week or so after everything, the first week of protests, around the second week or so, then all of a sudden 6 black men all are found hanging from trees. That's coordinated. And are these white nationalist groups capable of this? Absolutely. But I'm sorry. I have a hard time thinking that there isn't somebody from the ruling class going, well, let's push these white nationalist groups to react this way and coordinate this to keep this race war narrative going, when in fact, as we said, the Black Lives Matter protests all over the world are like every person, every nationality, every age group, everybody going, we're done with this. And they have to keep us divided because look, man, people were setting fires in trees around the White House that first week of the protests, and they got close. And they're people are pulling down statues. So like, if they don't want the Capitol building and the White House to get burned to the ground, they got to keep everybody divided and pacified in some sense.
Yeah. Yeah. They never put anything past the government.
Yeah.
I think that would be a Carlin sentiment as well. I mean, and Bill Hicks, when you mentioned Bill Hicks earlier, he tragically died young, but he was in the same ballpark as Carlin as far as really just, calling out the powers that be. And he had a bit about when politicians get elected to office, they show them the Zapruder film. And then any questions?
Yeah, they would show them the Zapruder, what really happened.
And that was going through my head when all the stuff with Bernie. I was just like, yeah, well, I mean, don't put anything past these people are not going to go willingly into the good night.
I mean, it's an excellent point. It's a question I raised. The way Bernie just all of a sudden just quit. I'm like, did they literally threaten to kill his grandchildren or something? Which I wouldn't put it past them, that they just sent photos of his grandkids playing in a park and just went, gee, I hope nothing bad happens to them if you get the nomination. And he went, okay, I'm done. My good friend Joe Biden can have it. But again, talking about the current situation that we're in, so is on point with what Carlin said, because I remember that Sunday night, May 31st. So there'd been 5 days of protests, and Sunday night was when it really got bad where I live, and there was looting and the National Guard got called in. And I thought, tomorrow's Monday, but nobody's going back to work or school tomorrow because everything's been shut down. And I went, they're going to open everything up, because part of the frustration obviously was not just obviously George Floyd police brutality was the main reason, but a lot of people were like, the whole government's taking our jobs away. They won't pay our rent for us. Like, everybody is just the government figuratively had their knee on everyone's neck, and people were like done with it. And I remember sitting there thinking, they're going to open this country up because they need to put everybody, they saw the economic reasons behind the protests and even some of the rioting and looting. And there's like, we need you to go back to work to your dumb job. Like Carlin's like, just here's your little crappy job. We're going to open the country back up and give you your little jobs back so you'll stop protesting every day.
Right. Which, by the way, if you don't return to work, we'll fire you and you'll lose your health insurance. And good luck finding another job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, I mean, it's like...
They got you by the balls.
Of course. It's like Amazon fired Chris Smalls for organizing a strike because he didn't want him and his coworkers to die from COVID-19 in an Amazon warehouse for $10 an hour.
Right. And what is Bezos concerning himself with now? Building his own personal rocket ship. And Musk had to open his Tesla factory because that's essential. And I mean, he basically hijacked NASA, sent his own, you know what I mean? Like, these people aren't, and this goes back to what Carlin was saying, these people aren't elected,
mm-hmm.
but yet they have all the power. And they didn't have to hold a hearing asking if they could go into space and build rockets and do whatever, and the shocking lack of concern for his employees has always been a Bezos trademark, but like, especially during this, like when his personal wealth has gone up to, I mean, that amount of money is just mind melting in the first place, and to have somebody unchecked with that, I mean, money equals power. So, that makes them the most powerful people in the world, and they can really do whatever they like. So what incentive does Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk have to care about us? You know what I mean?
They made their billions by not having to pay taxes and getting
cheating.
And exploiting money from their workers and everything. I mean, they've
things you and I would go to jail for.
Yes, absolutely. That's the other thing. The corporate media, man. Oh, they talk about the looting like it's the worst thing that's ever happened. It's like, I'm not happy looting. George Floyd getting murdered is a lot worse. And why won't they talk about the looting at Wall Street? Why don't we talk? They should be screaming from the mountaintops if they weren't bought and paid for by the ruling class. They're not, I mean, they're mouthpieces for the ruling class, but they should be talking about how Amazon doesn't pay any money in taxes, how Amazon has made somewhere in the neighborhood of $40 billion during the pandemic. All these stores are shut down and everyone's going on Amazon and they won't pay their workers a union wage. Like, it's,
or air condition the warehouses adequately, or
give them PPE.
They make them wear shock bracelets to keep them moving. It's dehumanizing. So that tells you everything you need to know about those guys. I mean, they're crazy people, and again, back to Carlin, the politicians don't give a fuck about you, but the elite certainly don't give a fuck about you at all.
They don't.
At all.
The politicians only care about the elite that are keeping them funding their political careers.
Exactly. So now, but what's interesting is we are sort of, George is saying, it's not, it's not going to change. But as I mentioned before, he did clarify that in one of his books, short of a real revolution, because why would the powerful give up what they have,
Right. Why would they? Why would they?
They've clearly shown that this, I mean, if you can send rockets into space during this global crisis, how much do you care about the people on this planet?
Right. So, well, before we go, Pat, where do you see us? I mean, I know it's like hard to predict anything right now. Every day's different. But based on everything Carlin said 15 years ago and what you're watching and, you pay pretty close attention, what do you see happening? What do you think?
Outlook, not so good. It would be my magic 8-ball answer. Like I said, they have no incentive to change the wealthy, the elite, until they feel some sort of real pressure to do so, or a real threat to do so, and I don't know. How's that for an answer?
Yeah. No,
but I wanted to make a point real quick, if I could, about Carlin started out doing on the Ed Sullivan Show, doing fairly conventional material, and then in the 70s he had an awakening, late 60s, and in the 70s he became more counterculture, the 7 Dirty Words bit and all that, and then he late 90s on, which is the period we're focusing on mainly, he really became the truth teller that he is. And I think it's interesting, there's not many comics now that really are kind of they're there to fill his vacuum, but it's interesting that you and Jimmy, you started out as just comics, I want to say standard comics, but like what I mean, like regular club comics, and then through the course of events, you guys have had your own awakenings, like George, and now you guys are both truth telling, and Jimmy was so right on to pick up on that phrase, "It's a big club," because that is like that could be the motto of this country, really.
Yep.
It's a big club, and you ain't, from the beginning of it. So, but I think you and Jimmy are sort of carrying some of Carlin's approach, I guess, in what you're doing now. So I think that's awesome. Like I said, there was a lot of comics at the Improv that I saw that went on to have really great success, and I'm pleased for all their success and everything. But you and Jimmy, I'm proud of. Oh. You know what I mean? Like you guys are really putting the rubber to the road. You know what I mean? Like speaking out, and that's what that was what resonated most to me about Carlin's material, the stuff where he was telling the truth. So you guys are doing that now. You know what I mean?
Well, thanks, Pat. I appreciate that, to come out of that era. I mean, because that's the thing of we started in the 90s and the 2000s, and speaking out didn't get you TV shows. It didn't get you on late night TV. It didn't get you a sitcom. And so that's why it took some of us a while. And yeah, I mean, there's a handful of people, Lee Camp. I mean,
Lee.
And obviously,
Absolutely.
Chappelle is
Chappelle. Yep.
Chappelle's obviously out there doing it. Chris Rock, obviously.
Rock. Louis Black, maybe.
Yep. But really calling out the way Carlin did, man, or Hick, there's not enough of that. It's hard. It's like, yeah. So,
well, the ball's in your court now, buddy. Take it and run with it.
We're trying, man. I mean, having all the tour dates shut down because of this is rough, but, well, Pat, thank you so much, man. It's good to see you. Good to have you on the show,
man. Good to see you, Graham.
Thank you. And, thanks for supporting what I do here. And where can people find you online?
Oh yeah, I gotta. I don't really specifically myself have anything to plug. I mean, they can usually find me in your chat room.
Yeah.
But I would like to plug my wife, if you don't mind. She's
Sure.
a Native American singer. She's fantastic. Jamie Coon Music, JAMIECOON Music. On YouTube. She's got a channel there. And then if you want a little bit of fun, we also have the Karaoke Closet. If you just search Karaoke Closet on YouTube. I sent you some of the videos. I don't know if you got a chance to watch them, but we love doing karaoke. But since the shutdown, we couldn't. So I set up a karaoke set up in our closet, and we've been doing it in there and posting the videos on YouTube. So it's fun, like I'm okay. Like I'm a good karaoke singer, like I'm entertaining enough, but my wife
is a professional singer.
I mean, she just, I just posted a version she did of like Rocket Man and some other great stuff. So so if you could support her, that would be awesome. She's amazing.
Awesome. Well,
yeah,
Pat, thank you so much.
We should have her open one of your Zoom shows sometime.
Oh, look at that. Maybe that's not bad. We'll do a variety show.
Yeah.
Well, Pat, thank you so much, man, for supporting the show.
You bet, buddy.
And coming on. And we'll see you in the chat, my friend.
So long, suckers.
Share your knuckles for justice. Like, share, and subscribe. Hit the bell notification button and the subscribe button, even if you've done it before, because they're unsubscribing, many of you, every day. Watch the ads all the way through. If you click skip ad, I don't get paid. Also, support us at patreon.com/Graham Elwood or rockfin.com/Graham Elwood. Rockfin.com is a blockchain cryptocurrency platform. All my videos are on Rockfin ad-free. Thanks for watching.